Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy Charles Brooks, Commissioner of Precinct 1.
Present.
Devin Allen, Commissioner of Precinct 2. Gary Fickus, Commissioner of Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner of Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Executive Minister Dr. Robert Bob Mullen from the Legacy Church of Christ in North Russian Hills. Thank you for being out here today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Commissioners. Let us pray. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the good rain that fell last night and the way that it replenishes the land. Thank you for the work of our commissioners and judge as they work to deliberate the business they'll have before them today, that they honor people and individuals and corporations and organizations that have done significant things in the county, the work of literally hundreds of people that are brought before them, the diverse business that is brought before them from many different departments, the many lives, the hundreds of thousands of lives that are touched by the decisions here in this diverse county in which we live. Our prayer is that you would bless the deliberations today and the work that's done, that they'd be filled with wisdom, filled with a presence of yours. I pray this in the name of the Lord. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you.
Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. We do not have any agenda announcements this morning. Just an FYI, the PEBC is going to be meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock at the Council of Governments. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of May the 14th.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Okay, y'all in the middle. Commissioner Fickus.
Thank you.
Normally you can't vote for the other person, but we'll understand that he was running a little slow there. Motion passes unanimously. We have several certificates of appreciation, proclamations, and I'll begin with the Mount Olivet Memorial Day, and I will move for the ratification of that proclamation.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. The next resolution is the National Stop the Bleed Day, and I would like to ask the following individuals to come forward. Amanda Robbins, the Program Director for the Fort Worth Emergency Services. Kim Farland, Trauma Outreach Injury Prevention Coordinator, Trauma Administration for Texas Health Harris Methodist Hospital. And then the members that we have here are from the Safe Cities Disaster Preparedness. Y'all come. Don't be bashful. I'll read this into the record and then I'll come down there and presentation. Whereas trauma injuries are the leading cause of death for individuals 45 years and younger, with uncontrolled bleeding and the #1 cause of preventable death from trauma, and whereas the Texas trauma system is designed to prevent injuries, disability, and death through an organized system of responses and trauma specialists that address injury care needs from prevention through all phases of care to returning an individual back into their community. And whereas in conjunction with the Texas Trauma System, the Fort Worth Safe Communities Coalition Disaster Preparedness Task Force and their community partners have adopted the American College of Surgeons Committee on Trauma Stop the Bleed program to equip community members with little or no medical training, the knowledge and skills needed to provide basic trauma care and hemorrhage control prior to arrival of emergency medical services. And whereas the goal is for every Texan to know how to respond to these life-threatening events and help save lives through accessible training, and pre-positioned bleeding control kits supplied by sufficient tourniquets, hemostatic dressings, and personal protective equipment in areas in which they might be used, such as public spaces, transportation centers, buildings, schools, or workplaces. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court, Tarrant County, do hereby recognize May 23rd, 2019 as National Stop the Bleed Day in Tarrant County. Further, we urge all citizens to be empowered to respond and act in life-threatening events such as uncontrolled bleeding emergencies to help save a life, and highlight the importance of these trainings as provided to the public through local trauma systems, fire, EMS, and healthcare professionals. In witness whereof, we have here to set our hands and cause the seal of Tarrant County to be offered this 21st day of May 2019. I'll move its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we're back. We're gonna have 3 pictures. So don't get, once you see the first 2 flashes, don't get excited. Okay. Come on forward, everybody get in here. You vertically challenged, I understand that. Thank you, Mary Louise. You got the form, right? Here, thank you.
Thank you.
You can say all of the words you
All
like.
right.
You don't have to
Well,
limit
we
it to
don't
one.
have that many for you, but thank you, Judge Whitley, and thank you, commissioners and in the court here. Our Fort Worth Safe Communities Coalition Disaster Preparedness Task Force and our community partners really are honored to be able to offer programs such as Stop the Bleed out to our community. This is offered through many of the organizations that we partner with in the community. It's a free training that's designed really to empower and prepare community members to be able to act and have the skills necessary to save lives before trained responders come on scene. Many times it takes time, of course, for someone to arrive besides just calling 911, and those are the critical moments that these trainings are designed for. Just to put in and let you know that State House Bill 496 right now is still being discussed as far as related to the placement of bleeding control kits in public schools, and also required training of school personnel. And as mentioned in this resolution, that any public space ideally would be a place for those individuals to have access to bleeding control kits.
Question,
Yes, sir.
was House Bill 492?
496.
496, okay. And about what are the cost of those kits?
Depending on the types of kits you get, if you have one that has a combat application tourniquet, gloves, scissors, and bandage, those are about $50, give or take. And we recommend that if you have it in a public space, that you have a multi-use kit that are individually packed, so you can just grab and go if it is a multi-event.
It's kind of neat combat up here every once in a while. so
Yeah, and we recommend that if you purchase for your buildings bleeding control kits, that we put it next to the AED, because we've done a great job at educating our public on how to recognize cardiovascular events, and then they know where those AEDs are. So therefore, it's in a highly recognizable place.
Well, you got here, our budget officer just got here, and so we'll know now that we can put that in the facilities, I guess.
Yes,
Y'all know how many AEDs we got, right?
and they have kits that you can purchase that are like 5, 8, and 10 multi-use kits that can be placed alongside the AEDs.
Good.
Yes.
That's
So
looking
you
at-
might add a supplement to your budget request if we have it.
We can donate it.
Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you all.
The next resolution was a celebratory care flight celebrated their 40th anniversary yesterday, and I had an opportunity to be there at their luncheon and to present this proclamation, so I will move for its ratification.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. This was a busy week for me. Mayor Ken Barr, has served on as one of our appointees to NTTA for the last 11 years. This past May, he was elected to trustee to replace Louise Appleman on the TCC board. And so he had to resign, and I presented him his certificate of appreciation. At the same time, I had an opportunity to swear him in for the TCC board, so I will move its ratification.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Allen.
Thank you. I'm actually going to move for ratification for this. It's a celebratory resolution for a household of faith in Arlington. They are celebrating 20 years, but I did want to congratulate Pastor and First Lady Ropo-Tessin for the work that they've done in the Arlington community. They established this church in May of 1999 with just 3 families, and it's grown to a membership of thousands. They're one of the largest churches in Arlington, and they provide many needed services in the community, including a food pantry. I will be presenting this resolution this coming Monday on Memorial Day at their annual picnic, where I will look forward to visiting with the community and also having some traditional Nigerian food.
Excellent. Second.
Thank you.
We're still working on her. We have a motion, I think, in a second.
I said ratification on the front.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Don't be
Commissioner
picking on the
Fickus.
newbie.
Too late.
I have a congratulatory resolution for Eloy Rivas, who retired after 25 years, for ratification. If we could we do that and the item G at the same time?
I bet we can.
Okay, we also have a proclamation that's going to be presented on Monday at Blue Bonnet Hills Funeral Home in Memorial Park for the Memorial Day Remembrance Service, and that'll be in Colleyville. And I would move approval of both of those.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motions pass unanimously. Court members, you have before you our consent agenda.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 4 additional items for the court this morning. The first, we're asking that the court receive and file the annual independent financial audit for Tarrant County for the fiscal year, which ended September 30th, 2018. Mr. Kyle is here to answer any questions that the court may have as relates to this action.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Kyle, come on down.
Good morning.
Good morning. We appreciate the audit. This has gotten to be a standard time for me to ask you, and to make a couple of statements. I continuously, year by year, disagree with a part of my profession that says that we have to, that this is management's representations, and it all goes back to the OPEB, the other employee, post-retirement benefits, and the whole thing as it deals with the insurance. The profession says that because we have offered insurance in the past, that we have to offer it in the future, or that that's the same as saying we're going to offer it in the future, and that is not necessarily the case. And on any given Tuesday, this court could decide that we will no longer, we have to offer it, but we don't have to subsidize or pay for a portion of that for those of our, really either active employees or retired employees, but in our situation especially, that OPEB is based upon the retired employees. And this year, it went on the books, and it caused a big adjustment to our fund balance.
You're correct. The Governmental Accounting Standards Board sets accounting standards for governments, and some years ago decided that the OPEB, the other post-employment benefits, the health care benefits, whether or not you had a plan and whether or not you were legally committed, needed to be recorded on the financial statements. And in the past, the liability was related to a funding difference, the time, how well the plan was funded. Now they've changed from that to a theoretical actuarial liability for what would be paid to all retirees for forever, basically. So it is a very large number, required a lot of work by actuaries and a variety of folks to account for it right. It is a controversial opinion by GASB, but it's one that they've set, and we have to follow it to be able to present the financials in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles.
And again, my whole argument in this matter is there are entities that have contractual obligations
That's
to
correct.
provide this, but the county government, our county government, is not one of those.
Correct.
And so again, as I stated earlier, on any given Tuesday, we could decide that we are no longer going to subsidize. We can offer it, but we don't have to subsidize it. And if we did that, then that liability would totally go away from our financial statements.
That's correct.
So, and the reason I do this every year is because the very first page says that all these financial statements are our representations and we believe them to be true, and that liability is one that I do not believe that exists for this county. So, thank you very much for the hard work that your team put in and for everything that you've done. I also want to thank our audit folks and would like for them to all stand at this point in time because it's a team effort. And I can tell you, having set, Suzanne, y'all stand up. Laura, y'all. And I can just tell you, I also have had an opportunity to sit on the Board of Regents for UNT. And the first year I went on there, we did this right before we ended the next year. And well, I shouldn't say that. The first year I went on there, we weren't even doing external audits. And so now we are, and we're moving gradually to get somewhere near the same place that this county, because of the audit department and because of the work of the accounting firm working together, have had us on for the 22 years that I've been on this court. And we shouldn't just take that for granted. It is a lot of long hours, a lot of hard work by both sides, and I want to tell you that I appreciate the work you put in, how you work with our staff, and I appreciate very much our staff and the way they take this very seriously and they get it done. There are other entities in this area that basically have to have somebody else come in and do the CAFR for them. And our folks have never done that, and I've been very, very proud of the job they've done. So thank you, and let's give them a hand. Any other comments you'd like to make?
No, I have nothing else.
Thank you. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 2, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a letter of engagement between the county and the law firm of Kelly Hart and Hallman for the provision of legal services for the district clerk's office in an amount not to exceed $5,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 3, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve the payment of an invoice in the amount of $330 to the Dallas County Southwestern Institute of Forensic Sciences for a specified blood test for the ME's office.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion is second. I'm assuming that this is one that was paid late.
Yes.
That was going to be my question. Why are we paying this so late? It's November 9th. Was when the services were done.
Why do we pay it late?
Yep.
Well, because they just paid it late.
That's a great excuse.
So Okay.
Well, okay,
The
so,
reason we put these on here was because it's well past the due date. And, I mean,
we've
did
had,
we just lose it?
we've had conversations with the medical examiner's office, telling them that whenever we do any type of acquisitions, that they need to first check with purchasing prior to that. And they said they understood that. We have another one on the ME's office that's coming up after this one.
I see that. Okay, so I guess, again, as long as we're working toward not, and I know these are rare, but at the same time, the reason we said we wanted to list it is because we want to try to pay things on time. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
On the final one, this is item number 4. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve payment of an invoice. This time that amount is $26,980 to ANSI National Accreditation Board for on-site audit of the forensic laboratories. Let me state that in discussions with the ME's office, this is the only entity that does that certification because it is their certification. That at the time of the audit, they did not know how many auditors they were actually going to have on site, so they didn't know a specific price. In talking with the ME's office, I have advised them that whenever they make any acquisitions or enter into any type of verbal agreements, that prior to engaging those individuals, that they need to contact the purchasing office.
Move approval. Second.
Okay, so I want to make sure this is the case too. So they didn't get a PO, but that still doesn't explain why it took so long. So once they had, and we can go back up to that first one because I don't know exactly.
This one here was invoiced on March 31st of 19. I have the invoice in front of me.
Okay. So we're pretty close, but again, it's taken us 7 or 8 weeks to go from when it was invoiced. What?
I have a feeling there were discussions between the ME's office and purchasing advised that they had to come before Commissioners Court before they would be paid. And once again, as I mentioned, we've already had a conversation with the medical examiner's office to make sure that when we engage any group for any service, even if it's a sole source, that we have to run that through purchasing.
Okay. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Tidwell. Tidwell's recovering from going to Austin to see ZZ Top.
That would be an accurate statement, sir. Yes. I think they probably feel better than I do, and they're pushing 70. They're pushing 70.
They're more than pushing it, aren't they?
Yes, one of them anyway. So
They may be pushing 80.
anyway, today we have one item we're asking the court to consider, and that is to receive and file the auditor's report for our review of mileage reimbursement for county employees, and you have the response from the 2 departments that were impacted as part of this review attached.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Our motion is second. Any discussion? Please vote.
Thank you.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Ms. Glenn?
Move to receive and file personnel agenda.
Second.
Our motion is second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Good morning,
We
Ms.
have-
Glenn.
Good morning.
We had a good benefit meeting yesterday.
We did.
I would just comment on the fact that I think our employees are doing a much better job of kind of watching their health. And I think it's something that we can be proud of. I think we can continue to improve on that. And as we do, I think that will help keep our premiums down and hopefully be able to, keep up any increases. We also have resolved the matter with Express Scripts, and the check's not only in the mail, it has been deposited. So I want to thank the DA's office, Ann Diamond, and her group for helping get that done and be that much further along on that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Don't guess you just want to receive and file the purchasing agenda?
No.
Okay.
Thanks,
Well, I
sir.
wouldn't mind if we can get away with that. I mean, can we do that?
No.
That was as much of a hope on our part it was on yours.
That's closer than I've been before, but thank you. We have 5 items for consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for RFP 2019-143. It's an RFP for an historical preservation plan. Recommendation be to award to HHM and Associates, the amount of $79,000.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is another bid award recommendation for bid 2019-147. This is a bid for the sale of assorted handguns, sporting rifles, and scopes from the Sheriff's Office. Recommendation to award on a per enterprise basis, awarding to the high bidder, GT Distributors Incorporated.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 3 is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-155. This is our annual contract for trackless tack emulsion for use by all precincts. Recommendation be to award a per enterprise basis, awarding certain items to Blackledge Emulsions and text bid.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Last item is a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-162, annual contract for time, date stamp machines, service, and supplies. Recommendation be to award a per price basis, awarding to Associated Time Instruments Company Incorporated.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item is also a bid award recommendation for bid 2019-164, signing a contract for custom file folders for the district clerk's office. Recommendation be to award a per enterprise basis, awarding to the primary and secondary vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How'd the sale go?
It rained. Before that, we had a $381,000 day. That's less merchandise, heavy equipment, vehicles we've had in the last 5 or 6 years. It's a good day. Had over 100 and some odd people that came out Friday to view the vehicles. We don't have a public information officer at the present time, so we weren't able to hit the news media this year. We get calls all the time asking if we're going to have one. We've already booked the same date for next year. Good sale. That's not bad for 3-something hours worth of work. So Renee was happy. I also heard that there's a possibility that the city of Fort Worth might be interested in joining hands with us to conduct a potential larger sale with us next year. So we'll keep everybody in tune. But yes, sir.
Jack, I had a question. Back on item 2, the sale of assorted handguns, sporting rifles, and scopes. Do you require the buyers of those to have a federal firearms
Absolutely.
license?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Don't accept bids if you don't have a federal license. We don't sell many guns that we sold from the district attorney's office occasionally. This sale for the sheriff's office happens every 3 or 4, 5 years, something like that.
Okay.
But a good sale. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson, I believe you have an interlocal agreement.
I have 2 interlocal agreements, one with City of Pelican Bay and one with City of Simpson Park. I move approval of item 9N1, A, B, C, and D.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes
These have been
unanimously.
approved by the DA's office? Yeah. Thank you.
Are there any appointments today? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
Our motion is second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have two items that we'd like to bring to you this morning. The first concerns an update on the Tarrant County Historical Commission. Jim Hoaxon is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Morning, Judge Whitley, Commissioners. I'm Jim Hodson. I'm the chairman of the Tarrant County Historical Commission. And I think you have before you a listing of the committees, the various committees that are on the commission. I wanted to give you a quick briefing on the work of the commission right now. Our primary goal is historic preservation here in the county. To that end, we have two prime directives. One is to maintain an inventory and a survey of historical sites and locations and buildings within the county. The other one is education in a broad general concern. One of the things we've done this year is we've reconstituted all of the various committees on the commission and established committee chairs. And each one of the committees, for the first time, at least in my period of time with the commission, have established annual goals for what they want to accomplish there. The first one with the Archaeology and Endangered Properties Committee, the latest or the most recent county survey was from 1985. So we've got 30 or 35 years since a survey's been done. Now I know work is being done through Dawn and the archives, but these surveys are supposed to be maintained and updated every 5 years. Obviously that hasn't been taken place. So we've got the committee for the first time is going to start to do its own survey, which doesn't overlap with the work of Dawn's, but it's collecting data and other things from various cities within the county as to what they have in terms of surveys. And so we're starting to build a library at this point, and it will become a more extensive survey as we move forward. And that's in work, and that'll be an ongoing process. The Archives Committee is separate from the Tarrant County Archives, but what we are attempting to do here is we've had a number of times where people have said, well, such and such was agreed to on a certain point in time or years ago, but we have no way of really going back and searching that. Everything is in paper form. So what the Archives Committee wants to do this year is start to scan in and digitize agendas and minutes and other things that go back years and years and years. This will be a long-term project, but eventually this material will be available to the general public and to anyone else who is interested in the historic preservation.
Can I stop you for just a second? When you're
Yes,
talking
sir.
about scanning in things, and you're talking about minutes and stuff like agendas, are you talking about the court, the commissioner's court?
No, sir. No, sir. This is the Historical Commission documents.
So your committee meetings?
Our committee meetings. Our committee meetings, our agendas, and that type of thing.
Also, you referenced a list of the subcommittees. I don't think that we have that.
You should have had a list of that.
Okay.
Devin?
Is it up here?
No, I don't find it.
Is it in your electronic?
No, it's not.
Okay. We'll make sure that we get
Okay.
it for you.
The next committee is a cemetery committee. It's been very active. One of their goals for this year and next year is that there's approximately 60 cemeteries within the county, and virtually none of them have any type of historic interpretation at the committee. So we want to start to do some signage and start to do 5 or 10 cemeteries a year and do some type of signage that will provide some historic interpretation of the cemetery, its background, and potentially some of the people that are buried there.
Sir,
Yes.
how do you get to the number of 60?
That's the number that the chairman from that group has established. He's got a spreadsheet of approximately 60 cemeteries in the county.
That we know about?
Well, we only know what we know about. We can provide you with the list if you want to go through it. If you've got additions, we'd welcome that. But our committee chair's got a list of about 60, I'm not certain the exact number, about 60
cemeteries. I'd like to have the list because I'm not persuaded that we know about all of the cemeteries that exist in Tarrant County. And just because we don't know that it exists is not a reason to close the book and say that's all there are.
I would agree with that, but again,
Is the
if you
survey
don't,
that you're doing in any way, shape, or form likely to identify other?
potentially. But we've got a committee for the cemetery, so I can bring that to that chairman's attention. We'd welcome any information that somebody has, and we can.
We're closing the door.
No, we're not closing the door on
Not at all.
anything.
I think this is just to the ones we know about.
I
Right.
objected to the flippant remark about we only know what we know.
Well,
Okay.
We need to be trying to know all we can know, not just what we know.
the executive committee this year has established the committees and staffed them, and we've set goals for the year. And we've also started to reach out and form liaisons with affiliated groups. Virtually everybody on the commission is associated with other groups, whether it be a genealogy society or a historic society, a number of other different groups. And so we're starting to reach out to form liaisons with some of those affiliated groups. The Finance and Budget Committee has a proposed budget which discussed with Commissioner Fickus last week. Under the Heritage Tourism Committee, this is probably one of the most active committees and has been for quite a while. We have a number of different panel-type exhibits that have been utilized over the last few years. Some have been utilized quite a bit and are going to need to be replaced just through reuse. We have some other ideas about other exhibits and ways to be able to get them around. There's a very aggressive schedule right now of getting some of these exhibits out to places like schools and libraries and that type of thing. The Historic Courthouse Committee, one of the first things we did was over the years people would say, how many people visit the 1895 room? And the response was always a lot. So we put a counter in the room, and we're finding that from our preliminary numbers that we're probably looking at anywhere between 12 and 14,000 people a year going into that room. So that's giving us more reason to develop that room, tell the stories better, and along with that, we've been given access to the room across the hall, which used to be the county clerk's room, and we're now referring to that as the 1895 Room Annex. There's a proposal to remodel that room and refashion it into more exhibit space, but for now, until we can figure out exactly how that would take place, we're looking at doing a no-cost use of that room for school field trips and things like that. Again, we have a number of exhibits that are in storage. We can put them on viewable storage within that room so that school field trips and other people could come in and learn more about what's going on in the county. So the idea there is to increase awareness. Let's see, and then we've got the Historical Marker Committee. It's another committee that's always been very active within the county. They continue to do their work, and one of the things that we're proposing for this year is to provide the application fees that are required for submitting for a historical marker. It's a small thing, but we're asking that the county provide for a limited number of applications. It's a $100 to $125 application fee. The History Appreciation, Education, and Awards Committee. This is one of our primary pushes. We have members of the commission who were judges in History Day this year. We continue to do that. It's been the second or third year now. We're also expanding the scope of want to expand the scope of the summit in terms of the people who are brought in and attempt to make it a true summit by bringing in some of the affiliated groups that we've been talking to and about, and also look at expanding or reorganizing the recognition criteria for historic preservation. And community outreach. This is essentially the way that we are getting out the information on what's going on within the commission. So it's communicate. Every one of the other committees has items and things that need to be broadcast out to the community to increase awareness. And then the final committee on the commission is an affiliated committee, and that's the Certified Local Government Committee, which Dawn Youngblood chairs, and I have that's not included in the report here today.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
No, Jim, I appreciate it. I think that Jim is working to take this this committee and our commission, I think, to a little different level than they've been in the past. He's got, I think, great buy-in from a number of the members. So he and I went over his budget, and we're still working on his budget. So we'll be visiting with Helen and on something that's realistic that we think we can accomplish. So hopefully here in the next, very soon we'll have that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Members of the court, on item B, this is a legislative update. As most of you know, we had a pretty good day yesterday in the legislature. The House did not pass Senate Bill 29, which would have restricted our abilities and abilities of other political subdivisions to hire lobbyists to express the local government's concerns to the legislature. That failed after a long discussion in the House. Senate Bill 9, which is the ominous elections bill, also did not make it out of House calendars last week. So that's one that we did not want it to make it to the floor. That would have been approximately $475 million worth of unfunded liability to local governments. So we did fairly well there. House Bill 1 is in conference, SB 2 is in conference, HB 3 is still in conference. And so we're getting down to the last week of the session when I got communications from Mr. Schaffner to tell you about apparently how contentious it is down there. When Mr. Mendez was doing this type of work for the county, he would count the days down in days. Mr. Schaffner now has counted the days down in half days. So for every 4 to 6 hours, he's happy to check off one more box. So I'll try to answer any questions that the court may have.
One of the comments that I would make about SB 29 is Mr. Maney has said, it talked about hiring outside lobbyists. I think in the 22 years I've been on the court, we have only once have we hired an outside lobbyist, and that was on a transportation-related type of an issue, and not upon the issues which they were precluding. We do have our governmental affairs person there. The other thing that it was going to do, it would have prevented us from joining associations that went before the legislature to discuss issues pertaining to, there were 4 things that they were looking for: taxes, bond issuance, debt, and one other thing, which I just don't recall right now. But that's what, so basically what it meant is in order for us to express an opinion on those items, either we as elected officials or employees of the county would have to go down there under the way that the bill was trying to be amended at the drop of a hat, and then wait all day long and hopefully got to testify that day and it didn't get put off. And for the smaller counties, it would be the same type of thing, and they have, there's probably only about, I would guess, 10 or 15 counties throughout of the 254 that actually hire a governmental affairs person. The rest depend upon associations such as TAC or Conference of Urban Counties or TML to be down there and to go and testify and witness after having talked with the elected officials and have determined what positions that we want them to be there and to be responsible for. And that's what they were trying to prevent. And I'm very glad that that bill did not pass. It was, the line on it is that we're using taxpayer dollars to campaign against taxpayers. And I think that's the furthest from the truth. Again, we have, through the work of our governmental affairs folks and through the work of our associations, we have spotlighted many very bad bills that would have had a very negative impact upon the county and at the same time cost our taxpayers an awful lot of money. And so to say that we're doing that just in an effort to, to testify against our own citizens is not and was not an accurate statement. You can watch this. It's like watching the circus. And it's pretty testy about this time because they're all getting a little tired. But if you go to Texas Online on the internet and you click on that, you have your choice of whether you want to watch the House or the Senate. And both are equally entertaining, I would say, at this time of the year. So it'll be going on for at least probably another 7 days. And as we get closer to Monday, probably the longer those days will be. And so that's why Mr. Schaffner's probably doing that in half days, and he'll get to the hours here before too long.
Actually, Judge, instead of 7 days, he emailed me this morning. It's only 6.5 days.
Yeah, well, now he'll be down to hours before we get to Thursday or Friday, my guess is. Anything else, Mr. Mays?
No, Your Honor, we do have 13 audience participation forms. 3 of those would like to address the court.
Yes. The first, and I'm going to ask you would to please repeat your name and your address when you come forward. The first is David, is it Amelia? Amaya?
Judge Whitley and the court. My name is David Amaya. Good morning. Address is 1335 South Lamar Street, Weatherford, Texas. And I'm here today to have you consider working a long day here at the court, driving home, something out of your control, such as a broken taillight, gets you pulled over, and normally this wouldn't be something to express anxiety over, maybe a little, but not to the point where you consider losing your job, losing your family, being separated from your family. And this is what 287G does to specific classification of individuals, aliens, illegal albeit, but afforded constitutional protections as reviewed in 1986 under Plyler versus Doe. Additionally, there's a conflict of interest between practicing law enforcement, enforcing criminal code, but it also being concurrently, the punishment phase being concurrently addressed through civil punishment. In effect, Tarrant County is subsidizing the work of the federal government, the Department of Homeland Security, despite record-breaking budgets being established for the Department of Homeland Security. The court has about 40 days before they reconsider whether 287G is an effective policy. I'd like to mention that the group of people who are working to provide transparency to the effects of 287G have been unsuccessful, not because of their end of trying to find information to provide transparency, but because we are being denied information as to what crimes specifically these people are being punished for. Is it traffic violations, or is it the most common type of crime in, for example, Fort Worth, that being burglary and property thefts? If there is a disproportionate effect on the alienage classification of people, and it should not be subsidized by the Tarrant County, nor should it be enforced by local law enforcement, as their duty is to enforce local statutes and the state criminal code, not federal code. Before June 30th, within these 40 days, we would like for you to consider the mental effects that an individual can have for something that's out of their control, such as a broken taillight after working a long day trying to provide the basic necessities, for example, children, and the negative effects that it can have on businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Charles Emos.
I'm Dr. Charles Emos. I live at 7083 Alcala on Grand Prairie, the good part of Grand Prairie, Tarrant County side of Grand Prairie. I've spoke to this court about a year ago on 287G, and again a few weeks back. I don't want to bore you with my words again today. Instead, I've come here to read a statement from a community leader I've grown to get a lot of respect for over the course of this last year, who's unable to participate in the public comments section today. All types of government have their own roles and responsibilities in their respective citizens' lives. The federal government takes care of national defense, delivering our mail, regulating interstate and intrastate trade, and so on, including, of course, immigration enforcement. State government is responsible for providing free public education, funding Medicaid for our seniors, and running a whole host of state departments, each with their own mission to provide services for our citizenry. Finally, we have the government closest to the people: counties, cities, school districts. Each of these three also have their roles and responsibilities, such as public safety, building and maintaining roads and bridges, providing parks, senior services, and many other quality of life services. If all these types of government began with the idea of staying in their own lane and not trying to influence or control other types, I believe government at all levels would operate much more effectively. I've been teaching political theory and ethics for over 2 decades, and I've got really good at getting students to appreciate the brilliance of conservative thought. But consistently, students will always give me one objection. What good is philosophy? What is its role in the real world? After all, while this is a beautiful, brilliant worldview, politicians don't really believe it. And we know that they don't believe it because look at the way they act. One of the central tenets of conservative thought is the importance of local control. And look at what these fools in Austin are trying to do by binding your hands. Perhaps the most central tenet of conservative thought is family values, which is probably better expressed as the value of families. And yet here we are today. Here's what I'm hoping for you, sir, is next fall, when I'm teaching at the University of Texas Arlington, and some student raises this objection to me, here's what I can say. Of course there are some problematic politicians, but not all politicians. There are men of principle. There are people that if you want to look at what conservative thought really is like and why it should be appreciated, you can see, and fortunately you're here in Tarrant County, where all you have to do is come any Tuesday at 10 o'clock and watch our Commissioner's Court in action, and you will see consistency. You will see a man who not just gives us words, but believes them. Thank you. You are appreciated.
Dr. Hermes, Doctor, would you please tell us who you were quoting at the beginning of your remarks?
Glenn Whitley.
Thank you. Christopher Ramijo, please come forward.
Good morning, Commissioners and Judge Whitley. My name is Christopher Bermejo. I live at 3808 Levy Circle West in Benbrook, Texas. I'm here before you today to speak to you on the 287G matter as well. I'm opposed to 287G because immigration enforcement and the threat of such an action can negatively impact the long-term effects on the mental health and development of children. Children exhibit stress and anxiety-related behavioral changes, including symptoms of toxic stress, due to fear that family members fear of being deported, based on anecdotal reports from doctors and service providers since late 2016. A child's risk of mental health problems like depression, anxiety, and severe psychological distress increases following the detention and deportation of a parent. When you take someone's mother or father away, the loved ones who cared and nurtured them, they experience trauma. A study from Latino citizen children from 2013 to 2015 found that post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms were significantly higher for children who had at least one parent detained or deported. The stress and anxiety these children will experience will carry over to their performances in school and their ability to be social with their peers, and affects their diet and sleeping habits. A 2010 study of immigration-related parental arrests from home or at work sites found that a majority of children experienced at least 4 adverse behavioral changes in 6 months following a raid or an arrest. Compared to the previous 5 months, children separated were cried or often afraid more often, changed their eating and sleeping habits, and or were anxious, withdrawn, clingy, or aggressive. Unaddressed, these behavioral changes can lead to depression, separation anxiety, PTSD, and other serious brain damage, lifelong effects, which is why I'm opposed to 287G, because this affects our families. So as you see, it's important that we consider these adverse effects of 287G and the mental health of children, because the consequences can be lifelong. Thank you for your time and consideration. When the 287G agreement comes up for a vote, please remember what I've addressed to you today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other folks here opposing 287G but not wishing to speak at this time: Diane Wood, Fort Worth; Hannah Lathan, Fort Worth; Elva Mosier, Benbrook; Eddie Lou Mayfield, Fort Worth; Juana Kuzman, Fort Worth; Misty Petty, Fort Worth; Diva Babola, 76103; Cindy Matra, Fort Worth; Gabriela Rodriguez, 76133. You have another one? Guillermo Gomez, Fort Worth. Thank y'all for coming and being, and having your comments today. Again, I want to tell you how much I respect the way you have handled this from the standpoint of staying within the time requirements that we have set, and also in the way you've delivered this. So I appreciate your the way you've handled the issue.
That's all we have at this time, Your Honor.
And at this time, I will recess our open meeting, proceed to close to discuss items exempted under Section 551, 1071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. It always irritates GK when I start this thing without him.
Look at his face. He's already shaking his head.
Don't hurt yourself with that thing.
I'm fixing to drop the hammer.
Let me see we're ready back there.
I'm fixing to drop the hammer.
Now, what was that number again?
Having returned from our closed session and there being no business to conduct at this time, we're now adjourned.
I agree.
Okay.
He just got his steps. He got up 3 steps down